The sound of Maya's backpack hitting our kitchen floor should have been my first warning. My 16-year-old daughter never made noise unless she wanted attention or trouble. Tonight, apparently, she wanted both. "You said you'd do it tonight, Mom. Don't chicken out now. He deserves to know." Maya's voice carried that particular teenage venom she'd perfected over the past year, the kind that could strip paint off walls. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing electrical contracts for tomorrow's job site. The knuckles on my right hand were still swollen from sparring at Gus's gym earlier, but the ache felt good, honest, unlike whatever was brewing in my own kitchen. Lana appeared in the doorway, checking her reflection in her phone's camera for the third time in 10 minutes. My wife of 18 years had developed this habit recently, constant self-monitoring, like she was always performing for an invisible audience, which, given her PR career, maybe she was. "Brent," she said, not looking at me directly, "we need to talk." "I'm listening." I saved my work and closed the laptop. 22 years of running Marrow Electrical had taught me to recognize when someone was about to deliver bad news. The signs were always the same: averted eyes, fidgeting hands, and that particular tone that said they'd already made their decision and were just going through the motions of consultation. "Not here. We're going to Meridian tonight." I made reservations. Meridian, the upscale downtown restaurant where Lana liked to see and be seen, where she'd taken her biggest clients when she wanted to impress them, where we'd celebrated our 10th anniversary back when we still celebrated things together. "It's Tuesday, Lana. I've got a 6 a.m. job tomorrow. This is important." She was already heading upstairs, probably to change into whatever outfit she'd spent an hour selecting. "Tasha and Dylan are meeting us there." Dylan Cross. My oldest friend, or at least he used to be. We'd grown up 3 blocks apart, played baseball together in high school, been each other's best men. These days, Dylan was riding high as the town's golden boy real estate agent, selling overpriced condos to city transplants while I kept the lights on in their fancy new buildings. And Tasha Grant, Lana's business partner and best friend. Ice cold, sharp as a blade, and about as warm as a January morning in Michigan. If Tasha was going to be there, this wasn't a casual dinner. An hour later, I found myself sitting across from my wife in Meridian's main dining room, surrounded by the soft murmur of conversations and the gentle clink of expensive silverware. Lana had chosen a table in the center of the room, naturally. Maximum visibility. Dylan arrived first, all teeth and handshakes, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Brent. Looking good, buddy. How's business?" "Steady." I kept my answer short. Dylan's enthusiasm always felt forced these days, like he was trying too hard to prove we were still friends. Tasha glided in 5 minutes later, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor with military precision. She kissed Lana's cheek and gave me a nod that could have frozen coffee. "Sorry I'm late. Client emergency." Tasha settled into her chair and immediately pulled out her phone. "You know how it is." What I knew was that Tasha Grant never did anything without a reason, and she certainly never apologized for being late unless she'd been late on purpose. The server took our drink orders: wine for the ladies, beer for Dylan, water for me. I had work in the morning, and I'd learned long ago that alcohol and awkward social situations were a dangerous combination. "So," Lana said, reaching into her purse, "I hope nobody minds, but I'm documenting tonight for the vlog." She pulled out her phone and a small portable ring light, the kind she used for her Lana's Life social media presence. 15,000 followers who hung on her every word about work-life balance, relationship goals, and living your authentic truth. "Really?" I asked. "We're filming dinner?" "Content is king, honey. You know that." She positioned the phone at an angle that would capture most of the table. "Besides, I want to remember tonight." Something in her tone made my chest tighten. Not panic. I don't panic. but awareness. The same feeling I got when I walked into a job site and sensed something was wrong with the electrical setup. Danger, humming just below the surface. Dylan shifted in his seat. Tasha watched Lana with the focused attention of a director watching her star performer. And Lana was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, something colder, more final. "The camera's rolling," she announced to the table, then turned to face me directly. "Brent, there's something I need to tell you, something I should have said months ago." Her voice was steady, practiced, like she'd rehearsed this moment. "I want a divorce." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Around our table, conversations continued. Servers moved between tables with practiced efficiency. The world kept spinning. But at our little corner of Meridian, time stopped. Dylan's beer glass paused halfway to his lips. Tasha's fingers went still on her phone screen. Maya, I hadn't even noticed her slip into the empty chair at the next table, leaned forward with the hungry expression of someone watching a car crash. And Lana kept the camera rolling. I looked at my wife of 18 years, the mother of my daughter, the woman who used to laugh at my terrible jokes and steal bites of my breakfast on Sunday mornings. I looked at her sitting there in her carefully chosen outfit, in her carefully chosen restaurant, with her carefully chosen audience. "Good luck," I said. That was it. 2 words. No pleading, no questions, no dramatic gestures. I stood up, reached across the table, and picked up the house keys she'd left next to her water glass, the same keys she'd been fidgeting with since we sat down. Under the table, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Peterson Security, the company that handled our home alarm system. "Emergency lock change needed tonight. Authorization code 7749. The response came back in 30 seconds. "Confirmed. Technician dispatched. ETA 45 minutes. I looked around the table one more time. Dylan had gone pale. Tasha was watching me with something that might have been respect. Maya was recording everything on her own phone, probably already planning her TikTok post about her parents' dramatic divorce announcement. And Lana was staring at me with her mouth slightly open, like she'd expected tears or anger or some kind of emotional breakdown that she could capture for her followers. "The cameras are still rolling," I said quietly. "You might want to think about what story you're telling." Then I walked out of Meridian, leaving my wife and her audience to figure out what came next. The drive home took 12 minutes, just enough time for the reality of the situation to sink in and for me to start making plans. Peterson's security was already at the house when I pulled into the driveway. Jake Peterson himself was handling the job, which told me he understood the urgency of the situation. We'd worked together on several commercial projects, and he knew I didn't make emergency calls lightly. "Evening, Brent. Rough night?" Getting rougher by the minute. I handed him the house keys. Full lock change, front and back doors, garage, and the side gate. New codes for the alarm system, too. "You got it. Should take about an hour." While Jake worked, I sat in my truck and started making calls. First, the bank. Our accounts were joint, but I'd set them up with individual access codes for security purposes. Lana had never bothered to memorize hers, preferring to let me handle the finances while she focused on her career. "First National Emergency Services. How can I help you?" "This is Brent Marrow, account holder. I need to freeze all joint accounts immediately and set up individual access only. I'll need to verify your identity and account information." 5 minutes later, it was done. Every shared checking account, savings account, and credit card was locked down tight. Lana would wake up tomorrow to find her financial access severed as cleanly as she'd severed our marriage. Next call, our insurance company, auto, home, life, all of it in my name, with Lana listed as a beneficiary and authorized user. Not anymore. Third call, the phone company. Lana's line was part of our family plan, which meant I controlled it. One quick conversation with customer service, and her phone would stop working by midnight. Fourth call, our delivery services. Amazon, grocery delivery, meal kits, all of it routed through my email and credit cards. I systematically changed the delivery address to Tasha's downtown condo. If Lana wanted to maintain her lifestyle, she could do it on someone else's dime. By the time Jake finished with the locks, I'd restructured our entire shared life. 18 years of joint everything, untangled in less than 2 hours. All set, Jake said, handing me a new set of keys. Old locks are in the truck if you want them for any reason. Keep them. Evidence, maybe. Jake nodded. He'd been through his own divorce 3 years earlier. He understood the game. Inside the house, I went straight to my home office and fired up the computer. Lana's dinner performance was probably already uploaded to her social media accounts, edited and polished to make her look like the brave woman finally escaping an unhappy marriage. But I had something she didn't know about: the raw footage. Lana's phone automatically backed up all her videos to our shared cloud storage, a system I'd set up years ago when she started her vlog. She'd never bothered to change the settings, which meant I had access to every piece of content she'd ever created, including tonight's dinner theater. I downloaded the unedited video file and watched it twice. The first time, I focused on Lana's performance, the practice delivery, the careful camera angles, the way she'd positioned herself to look vulnerable and sympathetic. The second time, I watched everyone else. Dylan's reaction was particularly interesting. He didn't look surprised by Lana's announcement. He looked nervous, like someone waiting for his cue in a play he'd helped write. And Tasha was watching me the entire time, studying my reaction with the intensity of a scientist observing an experiment. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was a coordinated campaign. I copied the raw footage to a secure drive and created a private link with viewing access. Then I composed a simple email and sent it to everyone who'd been at the restaurant tonight, plus a few other interested parties. For those who want to see the complete, unedited version of tonight's dinner conversation, including the 20 minutes of setup before the cameras were officially turned on, link expires in 48 hours. Watch or don't. Your choice. Brent. The setup footage was particularly revealing. Lana and Tasha whispering in the corner, Dylan checking his watch repeatedly, Maya getting positioned at the next table with her phone ready. It looked exactly like what it was, a planned ambush. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. L. I deleted it without responding. Another buzz. Brent, please be reasonable. We can work this out. L. Deleted. A third message, this one from Dylan. Hey buddy, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Call me. I screenshot that one before deleting it. Dylan calling me buddy after what I'd just witnessed was either breathtaking arrogance or complete stupidity. Possibly both. At midnight, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the front window, I watched Lana get out of her BMW and walk to the front door. She tried her key 3 times before accepting that it wouldn't work. The doorbell rang. I didn't answer. She knocked, gently at first, then with increasing urgency. Brent, I know you're in there. We need to talk about this like adults. I stayed in my office, working on tomorrow's job estimates. I'm not going away until you open this door. I ordered a pizza for delivery and went back to work. 20 minutes later, the pizza arrived. I watched through the window as the delivery driver had to walk around Lana, who was now sitting on our front steps, scrolling through her phone with increasing agitation. Sir, is everything okay? The driver asked when I opened the door. The lady outside seems upset. She's fine. She just doesn't live here anymore. Lana looked up at the sound of my voice. Brent, please, don't do this. Do what? I'm just eating dinner in my own house. Our house. Check the deed. It's in my name. Always has been. That was the truth. When we'd bought the house 15 years ago, my credit score was better, and the mortgage company had required a single applicant. Lana had signed a quit-claim deed, giving up any ownership interest in exchange for being added to the homeowner's insurance. At the time, It seemed like a practical decision. Tonight, it felt like Providence. I closed the door and ate my pizza while Lana sat outside making phone calls. Through the window, I could see her growing more frustrated with each conversation. Probably discovering that her phone service was about to be cut off, her credit cards were frozen, and her carefully planned, dramatic exit was turning into a logistical nightmare. At 12:47 a.m., a car pulled up to the curb. Tasha got out and walked over to Lana, who was now crying on the front steps. They had a brief, intense conversation that ended with Lana gathering her purse and following Tasha to the car. Before they drove away, Tasha looked directly at my office window and gave me a small nod. Not respectful, not friendly. Something else entirely. Recognition, maybe. Like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. I watched their taillights disappear down the street, then went back to my computer. I had work to do. The legal notice arrived at Lana's new temporary address, Tasha's condo, at exactly 9 a.m., delivered by a process server who'd been waiting in the building's lobby since 8:30. I knew this because I'd paid him an extra $50 to text me confirmation when the delivery was complete. The notice was simple and direct, a formal declaration of separation filed with the county clerk's office at 8 a.m. sharp, along with a petition for exclusive use of the marital residence. Michigan law was clear. Whoever filed first had the advantage, and I'd been up since 5 a.m. making sure every piece of paperwork was perfect. My phone started ringing at 9:15. Brent Marrow. This is Jennifer Walsh from Walsh & Associates. I represent Lana Marrow. We need to discuss your recent filings. Jennifer Walsh, the most expensive divorce attorney in the county, known for representing high-net-worth women in contentious separations. Lana was moving fast. I'm sure we do. Have your client review the separation agreement I filed. She has 72 hours to respond. Mr. Marrow, I think you should know that Mrs. Marrow intends to contest your claims regarding the residence and business assets. She can contest whatever she wants. The house is in my name, the business is in my name, and the prenuptial agreement she signed is notarized and witnessed. Good luck with that. A pause. Prenuptial agreement. Page 47 of the filing. She might want to review it. Another pause, longer this time. Mr. Marrow, are you represented by counsel? I represent myself. 18 years of marriage to a PR executive teaches you a lot about reading contracts and protecting your assets. That was a lie. I'd hired Saul Becker, the sharpest family law attorney in 3 counties, but I wasn't ready to reveal that card yet. Let Lana's expensive lawyer think she was dealing with an amateur. I hung up and checked my email. 17 messages, mostly from people who'd watched the raw dinner footage I'd shared. The responses ranged from shocked to supportive to downright gleeful. Apparently, Lana's perfect marriage social media presence hadn't fooled as many people as she'd thought. One email stood out, from my neighbor, Mrs. Holcomb. Brent, I saw the video. I think you should know that your wife has been having visitors during the day while you're at work. Different car in your driveway 3 times a week for the past 2 months. Silver BMW. Thought you should know. Eleanor. Dylan drove a silver BMW. I screenshot the email and forwarded it to Saul Becker with a note. More evidence for the adultery claim. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Dad, Mom says you changed the locks and froze her accounts. That's really messed up. I stared at the message for a long moment. My daughter, taking her mother's side without asking for my version of events. Not surprising, but still painful. I typed back, Your mother announced our divorce on camera without discussing it with me first. She made her choice. I'm protecting myself. She says you're being vindictive. I'm being practical. There's a difference. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Maya was typing and deleting, probably trying to find the right words to make me feel guilty. It was a skill she'd inherited from her mother. Finally, this is really going to hurt her business. And there it was. Not concern for her mother's emotional well-being or our family's future, concern for the business, for the image, for the brand. That's not my problem anymore, I replied. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several more times. Then nothing. Maya had given up, at least for now. I spent the morning at the job site, running electrical for a new medical building downtown. Physical work helped me think, and I had a lot to process. The crew could tell something was up. I was quieter than usual, more focused. But nobody asked questions. Blue-collar guys understood that sometimes a man needed to work through his problems with his hands. During lunch break, I drove past Dylan's real estate office. His silver BMW was parked in its usual spot, freshly washed and detailed. I thought about Mrs. Holcomb's email and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, exactly. More like clarity. Dylan Cross, my oldest friend, had been visiting my wife while I was at work, 3 times a week, for 2 months. And last night, he'd sat across from me at dinner, shaking my hand and calling me buddy, while helping my wife orchestrate her public betrayal. I pulled out my phone and called his office. Cross Realty, this is Dylan. Hey, it's Brent. We need to talk. A pause. Brent, listen, about last night. Not over the phone. Meet me at Murphy's at 6. Murphy's was the blue-collar bar where we used to watch games together, back when we were actually friends. Neutral territory, but on my turf. Dylan would be surrounded by electricians, plumbers, and construction workers who knew me and didn't think much of pretty boy real estate agents. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. 6 o'clock, Dylan. Don't make me come find you. I hung up before he could respond. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze of wire pulling and conduit installation. Routine work that let my mind wander to more important things, like the fact that Lana's social media accounts had been suspiciously quiet since last night. No posts, no stories, no updates. Either she was planning something big, or she was dealing with the fallout from my morning legal filings. At 5:30, I cleaned up the job site and headed to Murphy's. The bar was already crowded with the after-work crowd, guys I'd known for years, drinking beer and complaining about bosses, weather, and wives. My kind of people. Heard you had some excitement last night, said Tommy Chen, a plumber who'd worked with me on several projects. Word traveled fast in small towns, especially when it involved public drama at expensive restaurants. You could say that. Lana's been posting some interesting stuff online today. That got my attention. What kind of stuff? Tommy pulled out his phone and showed me Lana's Instagram story. A series of carefully composed photos. Lana looking tearful and vulnerable, sitting in what looked like a lawyer's office. Text overlay. Sometimes the hardest thing is admitting when something isn't working. Thank you for all your support during this difficult time. Below that, another story. A screenshot of what appeared to be bank statements, with certain numbers highlighted. The implication was clear. I'd financially abandoned her, left her with nothing, forced her to rely on the kindness of friends. Of course, the screenshots didn't show the full picture. They didn't show her separate savings account, her business income, or the fact that she'd been planning this for months. They just showed what she wanted people to see, the wronged wife, cast out by her cruel husband. She's good, I admitted. I'll give her that. At exactly 6 o'clock, Dylan walked into Murphy's wearing a suit that cost more than most of the guys in the bar made in a week. Conversations quieted as he made his way to my table in the back corner. He looked like a politician visiting a factory, uncomfortable and out of place. Brent. He sat down across from me, declining my offer to buy him a drink. I want you to know that whatever you think happened, I think you've been visiting my wife while I was at work. 3 times a week for 2 months, silver BMW in my driveway. I kept my voice conversational, but every word carried weight. I think you helped plan last night's little performance. And I think you've been lying to my face for months. Dylan's composure cracked slightly. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. He looked around the bar, taking in the faces watching our conversation with undisguised interest. This wasn't the private heart-to-heart he'd probably been expecting. Can we go somewhere more private? No, right here is fine. These are my friends, Dylan. They've known me for years. They know I'm not the kind of man who makes accusations without evidence. Lana and we've been talking about business opportunities. She wanted advice on expanding her PR firm. 3 times a week? For 2 months? Must be a hell of a business plan. Dylan shifted in his seat. She was unhappy, Brent. She felt like you two had grown apart. She needed someone to talk to. And you volunteered to be her shoulder to cry on. It wasn't like that. I pulled out my phone and opened the raw dinner footage. You want to watch this again? See how surprised you look when she announces the divorce? Or should we skip to the part where you're checking your watch, waiting for your cue? The color drained from Dylan's face. You don't understand the whole situation. Then help me understand. Start with why my oldest friend decided to help my wife humiliate me in public instead of talking to me directly. Dylan opened his mouth, then closed it. Around us, the bar had gone quiet. 30 pairs of eyes watching the golden boy real estate agent squirm under questioning from the local electrician. I never meant for it to happen this way, he finally said. But it did happen this way. The question is, what happens next? Dylan looked at me across the table, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Fear. Not of physical confrontation. I wasn't going to hit him in a crowded bar, but of consequences. Of his carefully constructed image crumbling in front of people whose respect actually mattered. What do you want, Brent? I finished my beer and stood up. I want you to stay away from my wife, my daughter, and my business. I want you to find somewhere else to drink and eat and show off your fancy car. And I want you to remember that in a town this size, everybody talks to everybody. Your reputation is only as good as your word, and your word isn't worth much anymore. I dropped a 20 on the table and walked toward the door. Behind me, I could hear the conversations resuming, voices low and speculative. By tomorrow morning, everyone in town would know that Dylan Cross had been caught playing around with another man's wife. In small towns, that kind of reputation followed you everywhere. I should have expected Lana to move fast. By the time I got home from Murphy's, she'd already launched her counterattack across multiple fronts. First, the legal response. A courier was waiting in my driveway with an emergency injunction, filed by Jennifer Walsh and approved by Judge Morrison, who happened to be a client of Lana's PR firm. The injunction froze all marital assets pending a full financial disclosure and ordered me to restore Lana's access to joint accounts within 24 hours. Second, the social media campaign. Lana had posted a carefully edited version of last night's dinner video, complete with dramatic music and text overlays painting me as a controlling husband who'd trapped her in an unhappy marriage. The comments section was filled with supportive messages from her followers, calling me everything from toxic to abusive. But the real masterpiece was her Instagram live session from earlier that evening. 43 minutes of Lana, looking perfectly vulnerable in soft lighting, telling her version of our marriage. How I'd gradually isolated her from friends. How I'd controlled the finances to keep her dependent. How she'd finally found the courage to speak her truth, only to be punished with financial abandonment and public humiliation. It was a brilliant performance. Sympathetic, believable, and completely fabricated. The live session had been viewed over 8,000 times and shared across multiple platforms. Team Lana was trending locally, with women sharing their own stories of escaping controlling relationships. I was being positioned as the villain in my own life story. My phone rang. Saul Becker, my attorney. Brent, we need to talk. Have you seen the injunction? Reading it now. Judge Morrison is in Lana's pocket. This whole thing stinks of coordination. Emergency filing at 5 p.m. on a Friday, approved within an hour. Someone called in favors. Can we fight it? We can try, but it'll take time. Meanwhile, you're legally required to restore her financial access. If you don't comply by tomorrow evening, you'll be in contempt of court. I sat down at my kitchen table and really looked at the injunction for the first time. It wasn't just about restoring Lana's access to our accounts. It also prohibited me from disposing of marital assets, which could include anything from selling my truck to changing the locks on the house. Saul, what happens if I've already disposed of assets? What kind of assets? Hypothetically, what if I'd already moved money from joint accounts into individual accounts before the injunction was filed? A pause. Hypothetically, that would be perfectly legal as long as it happened before the court order. Why? No reason, just thinking ahead. The truth was, I'd been thinking ahead since the moment Lana announced our divorce. While she was planning her dramatic restaurant performance, I'd been planning something else entirely. After hanging up with Saul, I went to my home office and opened the safe hidden behind my filing cabinet. Inside were documents Lana didn't know existed. A separate business account I'd opened 6 months ago when I started suspecting something was wrong, transfer records showing I'd been gradually moving money out of our joint accounts for weeks, and most importantly, a folder labeled Insurance. The insurance folder contained something special. 3 months ago, I'd hired a private investigator named Rebecca Santos to conduct what she called a marital asset investigation. Officially, it was to document our financial situation for estate planning purposes. Unofficially, it was to gather evidence of anything Lana might be hiding. Rebecca had been thorough: bank records, credit reports, social media analysis, even surveillance photos. The folder contained a complete picture of my wife's secret life, including financial records showing she'd been siphoning money from her business into a personal account I wasn't supposed to know about. But the real treasure was the photographs. 12 high-resolution images of Lana and Dylan together over the past 2 months, entering hotels, leaving restaurants, sitting in his BMW outside our house while I was at work. The timestamps and locations were all documented, along with Rebecca's detailed notes about their meetings. I'd been sitting on this evidence for weeks, hoping I wouldn't need it. Now it was time to deploy the nuclear option. I scanned the photos and uploaded them to a secure server, then created a new private link. This one wouldn't be shared publicly. Not yet. First, I wanted to see how far Lana was willing to push her victim narrative. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Dad, I saw Mom's video. Is that really how you treated her?" I stared at the message, feeling something twist in my chest. My own daughter, believing her mother's carefully crafted lies without asking for my side of the story. "Maya, your mother is telling people what they want to hear, not what actually happened. I have evidence that proves she's been lying about a lot of things." "What kind of evidence?" I almost sent her the photos right then. Almost showed her exactly what kind of woman her mother really was. But Maya was 16 years old, and seeing explicit evidence of her mother's affair would damage her in ways that couldn't be undone. The kind that will come out in court. Ask your mother about Dylan Cross and see how she reacts. 3 dots appeared and disappeared for several minutes. Then, she says Dylan is just a friend who's been helping her through a difficult time. I'm sure she does. "Dad, please just apologize and try to work this out. You're embarrassing her." I'm embarrassing her. My wife announces our divorce on camera without warning, paints me as an abusive husband on social media, and I'm the one causing embarrassment. "Maya, your mother made her choice. She chose to end our marriage publicly, dramatically, and without any attempt at counseling or reconciliation. She chose to involve lawyers and social media instead of having an honest conversation. I'm simply responding to the situation she created." "But you changed the locks and froze her accounts. That's really harsh." "She announced our divorce without warning and had already consulted with the most expensive attorney in the county. Did you think I should just wait around to see what other surprises she had planned?" No response. Maya had probably run back to her mother with screenshots of our conversation, which would be analyzed and weaponized for the next phase of Lana's campaign. At 10 p.m., my doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a woman I didn't recognize, mid-30s, professional attire, holding a microphone. Behind her, a man with a camera, local news. Lana had called in the media. I didn't answer the door, but I watched through the window as the reporter did a stand-up piece on my front lawn. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could guess. Local woman seeks help after husband's financial retaliation. Domestic dispute turns ugly in suburban neighborhood. Social media star speaks out about controlling marriage. The news crew left after 10 minutes, but not before getting plenty of footage of my house, my truck, and my refusal to comment on the story. I went back to my computer and started typing. If Lana wanted to play the media game, I'd give her something to really talk about. The blog post took me 2 hours to write and another hour to edit. I kept it factual, chronological, and devastating. The timeline of our marriage's breakdown, the evidence of her affair, the coordination behind her restaurant performance, the financial manipulation she'd been hiding for months. I included links to the raw dinner footage, Rebecca's surveillance photos, and bank records showing Lana's secret account. Everything documented, time-stamped, and legally obtained. The headline was simple: My wife's public divorce announcement, the full story. I posted it to a new blog site at midnight and shared the link on every social media platform I could think of. Then I sent copies to the local news stations, the newspaper, and several popular gossip blogs that covered local drama. By morning, Team Lana was going to have some serious competition. The story exploded overnight. By 6 a.m., my blog post had been shared over 3,000 times across multiple platforms. The local news station that had filmed at my house the night before was now calling for interviews. The newspaper wanted a statement. 3 different podcast hosts had reached out about featuring the story. But the real indicator of impact was my phone, which had been buzzing non-stop since 5 a.m. with calls and texts from people I hadn't heard from in years. Old friends, former clients, even my ex-girlfriend from college, all reaching out to offer support or ask if the story was really true. The answer, of course, was that every word was documented and verifiable. Lana's response was swift and predictable. By 7 a.m., she'd posted a new video claiming I was weaponizing private information and violating her privacy by sharing details of our marriage. She threatened legal action for defamation and invasion of privacy, while carefully avoiding any direct denial of the affair allegations. Her followers were split. The original Zao Team Lana supporters were calling for my head, claiming I was an abusive monster who was now stalking and harassing my ex-wife. But a growing number of comments were asking uncomfortable questions about the timeline discrepancies, the surveillance photos, and the financial records I'd shared. The most damaging responses came from people in town who knew us personally. Neighbors confirming Dylan's frequent visits to our house, clients of Lana's PR firm sharing stories about her increasingly erratic behavior over the past few months. Even some of her own social media followers pointing out inconsistencies between her perfect marriage posts and her current claims of long-term unhappiness. At 8 a.m., Jennifer Walsh called. Mr. Marrow, I'm calling to inform you that my client intends to pursue criminal charges for stalking, harassment, and invasion of privacy. Your client is welcome to try. Everything I published was legally obtained and directly relevant to the divorce proceedings she initiated. The surveillance photos constitute stalking under Michigan law. The surveillance photos were taken by a licensed private investigator in public places as part of a legitimate asset investigation. I have all the documentation. A pause. Asset investigation? Your client has been hiding financial assets and conducting an extramarital affair that directly impacts the division of marital property. The investigation was necessary to protect my interests in the divorce proceedings. Another pause, longer this time. Mr. Marrow, perhaps we should discuss a settlement. I'm not interested in a settlement. Your client wanted a public divorce, so we're having a public divorce. She wanted to control the narrative, but she doesn't get to control the facts. This is going to get very ugly for everyone involved. It's already ugly. Your client made sure of that when she decided to announce our divorce on camera without warning. I hung up and checked my email. 47 new messages, including several from reporters wanting to interview me about the story. I ignored most of them, but one caught my attention. A message from Rebecca Santos, the private investigator. Brent, saw the news coverage. You should know that I have additional materials that weren't included in my original report. Things I thought you might not want to see. Given recent developments, you might want to review everything. Can you meet today? Rebecca. Additional materials. Things I might not want to see. I called Rebecca immediately. It's Brent. What kind of additional materials? The kind that show this affair has been going on longer than we documented, and the kind that show your wife and her friend Tasha have been planning this divorce for months, not days. How long have you known this? I suspected it from the beginning, but I needed more evidence before I could present it to you. The surveillance you requested only covered the past 3 months. I kept digging on my own time. What did you find? Hotel records going back 8 months. Text message records that show coordination between Lana, Dylan, and Tasha. Financial records showing they've been moving money around to hide assets from you and… She paused. Video evidence of the 3 of them meeting to plan exactly what happened at the restaurant. Video evidence. They'd recorded themselves planning my humiliation. How much video? 3 separate meetings over the past month. They discussed timing, camera angles, how to make you look bad, how to control the narrative afterward. It's all there, Brent. Everything. I closed my eyes and tried to process what Rebecca was telling me. This wasn't just an affair that had gotten out of hand. This was a coordinated conspiracy to destroy my reputation, steal my assets, and publicly humiliate me in the process. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? I'll be there. Rebecca's office was in a strip mall between a tax preparation service and a sandwich shop. Not glamorous, but she'd built a reputation as the most thorough investigator in the county. When I arrived, she was waiting with a thick folder and a laptop. Before I show you this, she said, I want you to understand that once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is going to change how you view your marriage, your wife, and probably your daughter. Maya's involved? She knew about the affair, has known for months. There are text messages between her and Lana discussing how to handle you when the time came. I sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. My 16-year-old daughter had been part of the conspiracy to destroy my life. Show me everything. For the next 2 hours, Rebecca walked me through a comprehensive timeline of betrayal that stretched back almost a year. The affair with Dylan had started the previous summer, during a real estate conference they'd both attended in Chicago. Tasha had encouraged it from the beginning, seeing an opportunity to get revenge on me for something that had happened years earlier. Revenge for what? Rebecca pulled out another file. Remember when you fired Tasha from that commercial project 3 years ago? The one where she was overcharging clients and skimming money from vendor payments? I remembered. Tasha had been handling PR for a large construction project I was working on. When I discovered she was inflating invoices and pocketing the difference, I'd reported her to the project manager and had her removed from the job. It had cost her a significant contract and damaged her reputation in the industry. She's been planning payback ever since. When she realized Lana was vulnerable to an affair, she encouraged it. When she realized Dylan was interested, she facilitated it. And when she realized they could use the divorce to destroy your reputation and steal your assets, she helped plan the whole thing. Rebecca opened her laptop and showed me video footage from what appeared to be Tasha's office. 3 people sitting around a conference table, Lana, Dylan, and Tasha. This is from 4 weeks ago, Rebecca said, starting the video. On screen, I watched my wife, my former best friend, and my wife's business partner plan my destruction with the casual efficiency of a business meeting. The key is controlling the narrative, Tasha was saying. Lana needs to be the victim, Brent needs to be the villain, and Dylan needs to be the supportive friend who helped her escape an abusive situation. But what if he fights back? Dylan asked. Brent's not stupid. He's going to figure out what's happening. Let him fight back, Tasha replied. The harder he fights, the more controlling and abusive he'll look. We document everything, we stay on message, and we make sure his reaction proves our point. Lana nodded along with everything Tasha said, occasionally adding details about my daily routine, my finances, and my relationships with friends and family. He trusts me completely, Lana said at one point. He has no idea I've been documenting his behavior for months. Every argument, every time he raises his voice, every time he makes a decision without consulting me. I have enough material to paint him as a classic controlling husband. And the restaurant thing will work? Dylan asked. It's perfect, Tasha replied. Public, dramatic, recorded. She announces the divorce, he reacts badly because he's caught off guard, and we have it all on camera. Then we leak the edited version to make him look as bad as possible. What if he doesn't react badly? Lana asked. Tasha smiled. Trust me, he will. Men like Brent can't handle losing control. He'll do something stupid, and when he does, we'll be ready. I watched myself being dissected and manipulated by the three people who were supposed to be closest to me. They knew exactly which buttons to push, exactly how to provoke me, and exactly how to use my reaction against me. Except they'd miscalculated. Instead of reacting emotionally, I'd responded strategically. Instead of playing the role they'd written for me, I'd written my own script. There's more, Rebecca said, pausing the video. 2 more meetings plus text message threads going back months. They planned everything, Brent. The timing, the legal strategy, even Maya's role in supporting her mother's story. I stared at the frozen image on the laptop screen, my wife's face, animated and excited as she described how to destroy my reputation. What do you recommend? You have enough evidence to prove conspiracy, fraud, and alienation of affection. You could destroy all 3 of them legally and financially. But Maya is still your daughter, and she's been manipulated by her mother for months. If you go nuclear, you might win the war but lose her forever. I thought about my daughter, 16 years old and caught between her parents' battle. She'd made her choice to support her mother, but she was still a child. Still, my child. What if I gave them a chance to back down? Show them the evidence and see if they're willing to settle this quietly. Rebecca shook her head. Tasha won't back down. This is personal for her. She's been planning this for 3 years, and she's not going to quit now just because you have evidence. Then what do you suggest? Give them enough rope to hang themselves. Let them keep pushing, keep escalating, keep making themselves look worse. Then, when they've gone too far to retreat, you release everything at once. I thought about it. The strategic approach versus the nuclear option. Calculated revenge versus total destruction. How much worse can they make themselves look? Rebecca smiled grimly. Based on their text messages, they're planning to file false abuse allegations next week. Restraining orders, criminal charges, the whole package. They want to paint you as dangerous. False abuse allegations. They were willing to destroy my reputation, my business, and my freedom to win their game. In that case, I said, let's give them all the rope they want. The restraining order was served on Tuesday morning while I was installing new lighting at the medical center. The sheriff's deputy handed me the papers with an apologetic expression. He'd known me for years and clearly didn't believe the allegations. Sorry, Brent. I have to ask you to stay away from your wife and daughter until the hearing. I read through the document while he waited. It was a masterpiece of creative writing. According to Lana's sworn statement, I had a history of controlling and intimidating behavior that had escalated to threats of violence following our separation. She claimed I was stalking her through social media, harassing her with private investigators, and threatening her livelihood by sharing private information about our marriage. The most creative touch was her claim that I had physically intimidated her at the restaurant by aggressively taking the house keys and making threatening statements about what would happen next. It was complete fiction, but it was well-crafted fiction. Jennifer Walsh had earned her expensive fees. "When's the hearing?" I asked the deputy. "Friday morning, Judge Morrison's courtroom." Of course it was Judge Morrison. The same judge who'd approved the emergency asset freeze. The same judge whose campaign Lana's PR firm had managed 2 years earlier. I called Saul Becker from my truck. "They filed the restraining order," I told him. "I saw. It's garbage, but we'll have to take it seriously. Morrison tends to err on the side of caution with domestic violence allegations. Even when they're obviously false? Especially when they're obviously false. He doesn't want to be the judge who dismissed a restraining order right before something bad happened. So what's our strategy? We document everything, every interaction, every communication, every social media post. We show that you've been responding to their attacks, not initiating them, and we hope Morrison sees through the performance. And if he doesn't? Then you're looking at a year-long restraining order that prevents you from contacting your wife or daughter, severely limits your access to marital assets, and gives them a huge advantage in the divorce proceedings." After hanging up with Saul, I sat in my truck and really considered my options. I could play by the rules, trust the legal system, and hope that truth and evidence would prevail. Or I could deploy the nuclear option Rebecca had prepared and end this war decisively. The problem with the nuclear option was that it would hurt Maya. The evidence Rebecca had gathered showed that my daughter had been manipulated and lied to, but it also showed that she'd actively participated in the conspiracy against me. Releasing that information publicly would destroy her relationship with her mother, and probably her relationship with me as well. But if I didn't use the evidence, Lana and Tasha would probably succeed in painting me as an abusive husband. The restraining order would be approved, the false allegations would become part of the public record, and my reputation would be permanently damaged. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news about the restraining order. Maybe it's time to admit you have a problem and get some help." Dylan Cross, my former best friend, publicly offering me advice about getting help for my problem with domestic violence. The same Dylan Cross who'd been having an affair with my wife for 8 months and helping plan my public humiliation. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Rebecca with a note. "Add this to the evidence file." Then I drove to Rebecca's office. "I need to see everything," I told her. "All the video, all the text messages, all the evidence. I'm done playing defense." Rebecca opened her laptop and pulled up a folder labeled Marrow Investigation, Complete File. It contained hundreds of documents, photos, and video files organized by date and category. "Start with this one," she said, opening a video file dated 3 days earlier. On screen, Lana and Tasha were sitting in what appeared to be Jennifer Walsh's law office, discussing strategy for the restraining order hearing. "The key is to make him look unstable," Tasha was saying. "The blog post, the social media campaign, the financial retaliation, we frame it all as escalating behavior from someone who's losing control." "But what if he has evidence of the affair?" Lana asked. "It doesn't matter." Jennifer Walsh's voice came from off-camera. "Adultery isn't illegal, but stalking and harassment are. We make this about his behavior, not yours." "And the surveillance photos?" "Obtained illegally by a man who was already planning to harm his wife's reputation. Classic abuser behavior." I watched my wife and her attorney twist the facts of our situation into a narrative where I was the villain and she was the victim. Every piece of evidence I'd gathered was reframed as proof of my instability. Every strategic move I'd made was presented as escalation toward violence. "There's more," Rebecca said, opening another file. Text messages between Lana and Maya from this morning. The messages showed my daughter helping her mother prepare for the restraining order hearing. Maya had provided specific examples of times when I'd raised my voice or seemed angry, all carefully taken out of context to support the abuse allegations. But the most damaging message was from Lana to Maya. Remember, this is temporary. Once we get the restraining order, we can settle the divorce on our terms. Your father will have to accept whatever we offer, or risk going to jail for violating the order. They weren't just trying to win the divorce, they were trying to blackmail me into submission. Rebecca, I want you to prepare a complete evidence package, everything we have, organized chronologically, with a summary of the conspiracy. I want it ready to release immediately after the hearing on Friday. Are you sure? Once this goes public, there's no going back. I thought about my daughter, who'd been manipulated into betraying her own father. I thought about Dylan, who'd smiled to my face while stabbing me in the back for months. I thought about Tasha, who'd orchestrated this entire campaign as revenge for a business dispute from 3 years ago. And I thought about Lana sitting in that law office, planning to use false abuse allegations to destroy my life. I'm sure. They want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. Rebecca spent the next 3 hours walking me through the complete evidence file. By the time she finished, I had a clear picture of just how long and how carefully this conspiracy had been planned. The affair had started 11 months ago, not 8. The divorce planning had begun 6 months ago. The financial manipulation had been going on for over a year, with Lana gradually moving money into accounts I didn't know about. Even Maya's involvement went back further than I'd realized. Text messages showed that she'd been reporting my daily activities to her mother for months, providing information about my work schedule, my meetings with clients, even my conversations with friends. My own family had been spying on me for almost a year. The restraining order hearing is just the beginning, Rebecca explained. Based on their text messages, they're planning to follow up with criminal charges, asset seizure, and a custody battle designed to keep Maya away from you permanently. Can they do that? If Morrison approves the restraining order and the abuse allegations stick, yes. They can use it to justify almost anything. I stared at the evidence spread across Rebecca's desk. Hundreds of documents proving that my wife, daughter, and former best friend had conspired to destroy my life. Proof that the restraining order was based on fabricated allegations. Proof that this entire situation was an elaborate revenge plot orchestrated by someone I'd fired 3 years ago. What happens if I release all of this before the hearing? Morrison might throw out the restraining order, but he might also hold you in contempt for violating discovery rules. It's a risk. And if I wait until after the hearing? If Morrison approves the restraining order, releasing this evidence afterward makes you look vindictive and unstable. It supports their narrative that you're escalating. I was trapped. Release the evidence early and risk contempt charges. Wait until after the hearing and risk looking like I was retaliating against a legitimate restraining order, unless there was a third option. Rebecca, what if we don't release everything at once? What if we leak just enough information to raise questions about their credibility, without revealing the full scope of what we know? What did you have in mind? The video of them planning the restaurant scene, just that one piece, released anonymously to a local gossip blog. No commentary, no context, just the raw footage. Rebecca considered it. It would definitely raise questions about whether the divorce announcement was spontaneous or planned, but it might also make them more careful about what they say and do. Or it might make them panic and do something stupid. I made my decision. Release the restaurant planning video tonight. Anonymous source, no connection to me or the investigation. Let's see how they react when they realize someone has been watching them. Rebecca nodded and started preparing the file. This is going to get very interesting very quickly. It already is interesting. Now it's about to become decisive. At midnight, the video appeared on Midwest Gossip, a popular local blog that covered small-town drama and social media feuds. The post was simple. Local PR exec caught on camera planning spontaneous divorce announcement. You decide if this looks genuine or staged. The video showed Lana, Dylan, and Tasha in Tasha's office, planning every detail of the restaurant scene. The camera angles, the timing, even the specific words Lana would use to announce the divorce. By morning, the video had been viewed over 15,000 times and shared across every social media platform in town. The comment section was brutal, with former supporters questioning everything they'd believed about Lana's story. But the real impact was on Lana herself. At 7 a.m., she posted a frantic Instagram story claiming the video was taken out of context and illegally obtained. She demanded that whoever had leaked it come forward and face legal consequences. The desperation in her voice was obvious. For the first time since this whole thing started, Lana sounded scared. My phone rang at 8 a.m. Jennifer Walsh. Mr. Marrow, we need to discuss the video that was released last night. What video? Don't play games. We know you're behind this. I haven't released any videos. I've been complying with all court orders and staying away from your client as requested. Someone with access to surveillance footage of my client is releasing it to embarrass her before the restraining order hearing. That someone is either you or someone working for you. Ms. Walsh, if someone has evidence that your client has been lying about the circumstances of our divorce, that's not my fault. Maybe you should ask your client why she was planning her spontaneous divorce announcement in advance. A pause. We're prepared to offer a settlement. I'm not interested in a settlement. Your client filed false allegations against me. I want my day in court. Mr. Marrow, I strongly advise you to reconsider. If more evidence like this comes to light, it's going to be very embarrassing for everyone involved. Then maybe your client should have thought about that before she decided to destroy my reputation with fabricated abuse allegations. I hung up and smiled for the first time in weeks. They were scared. The video had shown them that someone was watching, someone had evidence, and someone was willing to use it. Now they had to decide, back down and admit the restraining order was based on lies, or double down and risk having their entire conspiracy exposed. Knowing Tasha, they'd double down. Which meant I'd be ready for them on Friday morning with everything Rebecca had gathered. Not just the restaurant planning video, but all of it. The affair timeline, the financial manipulation, the conspiracy texts, Maya's involvement. Everything. They wanted to destroy my life with false allegations. I was about to show them what real destruction looked like. Friday morning couldn't come soon enough. Judge Morrison's courtroom was packed on Friday morning. Word had spread about the case, the restaurant video, the social media war, the abuse allegations, and half the town had shown up to watch the drama unfold. Lana sat at the plaintiff's table with Jennifer Walsh, looking perfectly composed in a conservative blue dress that screamed, "Victim of domestic violence." Dylan was in the gallery behind her, along with Tasha and several of Lana's supporters from her social media following. I sat with Saul Becker, a folder of evidence on the table between us. Rebecca Santos was in the back row, her laptop bag at her feet, ready to provide additional documentation if needed. All rise, the bailiff announced, the Honorable Judge Morrison presiding. Morrison entered and took his seat, surveying the crowded courtroom with obvious annoyance. He clearly hadn't expected this level of public interest in a routine restraining order hearing. "This is the matter of Marrow versus Marrow," he said. "Ms. Walsh, you may present your client's case." Jennifer Walsh stood and launched into a carefully prepared presentation about my pattern of controlling and intimidating behavior that had escalated to stalking and harassment following our separation. She presented the edited dinner video as evidence of my aggressive response to Lana's request for divorce. She cited the financial account changes as proof of my vindictive and controlling nature. She even brought up the blog post and surveillance photos as examples of my campaign of harassment and intimidation. It was a masterful performance, hitting every legal point needed to justify a restraining order while painting me as a textbook abuser who was escalating toward violence. "Your Honor," Walsh concluded, "Mrs. Marrow fears for her safety and the safety of her daughter. The defendant's behavior has become increasingly erratic and threatening. We ask the court to approve the restraining order and provide our client with the protection she needs. Judge Morrison nodded and turned to our table. Mr. Becker, your response? Saul stood and opened our folder. Your Honor, this restraining order is based on fabricated allegations designed to gain an advantage in divorce proceedings. We have extensive evidence showing that Mrs. Marrow has been planning this divorce for months, conducting an extramarital affair, and coordinating with associates to destroy Mr. Marrow's reputation through false allegations. He presented the unedited restaurant video, showing the 20 minutes of preparation before Lana's spontaneous announcement. He showed bank records proving that Lana had been hiding assets for over a year. He showed the surveillance photos documenting her affair with Dylan Cross, but the real bombshell was the video from Tasha's office. Your Honor, this is security footage from 3 weeks ago showing Mrs. Marrow, her business partner Tasha Grant, and her lover Dylan Cross, planning the restaurant scene that Mrs. Marrow has characterized as a spontaneous decision to leave an abusive marriage. The courtroom went silent as the video played. Lana's voice filled the room. He trusts me completely. He has no idea I've been documenting his behavior for months. Every argument, every time he raises his voice, every time he makes a decision without consulting me. I have enough material to paint him as a classic controlling husband. Behind me, I could hear gasps and whispers from the gallery. Lana had gone pale at the plaintiff's table. Dylan was staring at his hands. Tasha was nowhere to be seen. Apparently, she'd decided not to attend the hearing. But Saul wasn't finished. Your Honor, we also have text message records showing coordination between Mrs. Marrow, Ms. Grant, and Mr. Cross to fabricate abuse allegations specifically for this hearing. He read selected messages aloud, including Lana's text to Maya about using the restraining order to force a favorable divorce settlement. By the time Saul finished his presentation, the courtroom was buzzing with shocked conversation. Judge Morrison had to bang his gavel twice to restore order. Ms. Walsh, Morrison said, do you have a response to this evidence? Jennifer Walsh stood slowly. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked uncertain. Your Honor, we need time to review these materials and prepare a proper response. Mr. Becker, when did you obtain this evidence? The investigation has been ongoing for several months, Your Honor. All materials were obtained legally through licensed investigators and public records requests. Morrison studied the documents in front of him for several minutes while the courtroom waited in tense silence. Finally, he looked up. Based on the evidence presented, it appears that Mrs. Marrow's allegations of abuse and harassment are not supported by the facts. Indeed, the evidence suggests that Mrs. Marrow has been engaged in a coordinated effort to fabricate these allegations for personal gain. He turned to Lana. Mrs. Marrow, filing false allegations in this court is a serious matter. I'm denying your request for a restraining order, and I'm referring this matter to the prosecutor's office for potential perjury charges. The courtroom erupted. Lana was crying at the plaintiff's table. Dylan had stood up and was pushing toward the exit. Several of Lana's supporters were shouting questions and accusations. Judge Morrison banged his gavel repeatedly. Order! I want this courtroom cleared immediately, except for the parties and their attorneys. As the gallery filed out, I caught sight of Maya near the back of the room. My daughter was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not anger, not sadness, something else. Maybe understanding. When the room was clear, Morrison continued. Mr. Marrow, while I'm dismissing the restraining order, I want to be clear that this divorce proceeding will be conducted according to law and proper procedure. No more social media campaigns, no more public evidence releases, no more media involvement. Is that understood? Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Walsh, I suggest your client consider whether she wants to continue with this divorce proceeding given the evidence that's come to light. False allegations have a way of complicating legal matters. Jennifer Walsh nodded silently. This hearing is adjourned. As we packed up our materials, Lana approached our table. She looked older than she had a week ago, worn down by the stress of her collapsing strategy. "Brent," she said quietly, "can we talk?" I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd been married to for 18 years, the mother of my daughter, the person who'd tried to destroy my life with fabricated abuse allegations. "Through our attorneys," I said. "That's how you wanted to handle this, remember?" She nodded and walked away. Outside the courthouse, Rebecca was waiting by my truck. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it. The marriage was over. My relationship with Maya would take years to repair, if it ever could be. Dylan was finished in this town. Nobody would trust a real estate agent who'd been caught on camera, planning someone's public humiliation. Tasha's PR firm would probably fold within months once word spread about her role in the conspiracy. And Lana would have to live with the fact that everyone in town now knew exactly what kind of person she really was. "I feel like I won," I said finally. "What happens now?" "Now I go back to work. I rebuild my reputation. I try to repair my relationship with my daughter. And I remember that sometimes the best revenge is just letting people show the world who they really are." I got in my truck and drove home to my house, with my locks, in my name. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The war was over, and I was still standing.